Hey, health junkies! It's time for The Health Fix. Join your host, Dr. Janine Krause, as she gives you a dose of what you need to know and do right now to take control of your health from the inside out, to rebel against aging, look damn good, fight stress, and laugh every day.
Hello, health junkies. Welcome to another episode of The Health Fix. I'm your host, Dr. Janine Krause. And today I'm going to talk about those chemicals messing with your hormones and metabolism that are leaching into your foods and hanging around in your body from all of your daily routines. So what I'm talking about here is I've got a lot of people in my practice who are really great at eating clean, but haven't done a kitchen makeover in a while. And what I'm talking about is I'm talking about the cookware. And the reason I mention that is because I've noticed a pattern of some patients with elevated cadmium, lead, and aluminum in their blood when I test their blood for chemicals and toxicity. And this is a test called NutriEval. It's by a lab called Genova. And I'm really getting this connection here with what the heck's going on? Why do we have so much cadmium, lead, and aluminum? And when I interview these folks about these levels, they're like, yeah, I'm not really, running around with cadmium batteries and chewing on paint at my house. And aluminum isn't really part of my life except for maybe deodorant. So a lot of folks don't even get the connection here. And sadly enough, our cookware, so our frying pans, our baking ware, our cookie sheets, all these things are loaded with cadmium, lead, and aluminum because these are either what the items are made out of or it's in the enamels. And in particular, lead is in a lot of enamels and some of the prettier enamels when we have these red colored cooking dishes and whatnot. Yeah, they use lead in those guys, and even great companies like Le Creuset admits to using a little bit of lead in their red colored, cherry colored cooking vessels. So something to really think about here, because there's a huge connection with those toxicities and thyroid conditions and slowing metabolisms. Now, when I'm asking patients about their cooking habits, a lot of people are telling me about the oil they're using and they're not putting on high heat and this, that, and the other, but they're not telling me they're using plastic spatulas. Oh my goodness. Plastic, cheapo, 99 cents, you got them at the dollar store kind of spatulas and spoons and whatnot, stirring your soups. Oh my goodness. Plastic, when heated up, releases all kinds of chemicals. Tons of them. And add that with a nonstick pan that has an enamel on it that chances are is scratched or just in and of itself, it's toxic and it's already heating up and releasing all kinds of chemicals into the air. Now you've got triple trouble here, essentially. So today I'm going to talk a lot about what to do with your cheap plastic spatulas and what to do with your cookware, because there are options out there that are a lot safer for you. Now, another thing I want you to think about here for a moment is how much plastic do you use in your home? Now, I'm not talking about what foods are wrapped in plastic, because unfortunately, that's just the cost-effective, economical way for a lot of companies to package food. But I'm talking about, do you put your leftovers, your hot leftovers, in plastic? Do you use straws? Do you use the little plastic black straw to stir your coffee in the morning when you go to Starbucks and then throw that plastic straw in the trash? Do you drink out of those to-go cups that have that black plastic lid on there? Do you do that? Well, these are all plastics and you're heating them up. Even those of you out there who have glass containers but plastic lids, you take a hot item of food and you put it in that glass and you put a plastic lid on it. What do you think is going to happen? That plastic's going to heat up, and darn it, that plastic's going to leach some stuff right down onto your food. It's almost like a rain shower of chemicals onto your food. Now, I have those glass containers with plastic, but what I do is I let everything cool down completely before I even put plastic over it. Or I'm using a do-it-yourself wrap that I created. Mommy Potamus, by the way, she is fabulous. This gal gives a do-it-yourself trick to take fabric and convert it into reusable plastic wrap. Quote, plastic wrap, because it's not plastic wrap, it's fabric wrap. And there's also companies out there. There's a beeswax company that's fabulous too if you're not into the do-it-yourself option. I'll talk about it later, and you can see it in the resources at the end of this podcast for my show notes. But nevertheless, I really want you to think about how much plastic is happening in your house. Think about Ziploc bags. Think about Saran wrap. Most of us don't even think about the fact that, we just had dinner and now we're going to wrap it up. And so we put our hot item into a plastic Tupperware container and then slap on a plastic lid or cover it with Saran wrap. I mean, that was all the rage in the 80s. I grew up pretty much probably consuming a ton of chemicals through plastic. That's why I'm so goofy these days. So, nevertheless, I want you to think about the amount of plastic that you're using and how you're storing things and the amount of plastic use. Think about even if you go out to eat and you're going to Whole Foods. If you go to Whole Foods and you grab plasticware and then you go and sit and eat your lovely organic meal that's nice and warm and you're eating it with a plastic spoon or fork, well, guess what? Even though those spoons or forks are recyclable and all that, there's still toxins in there. Plastics are highly toxic for us. So keeping that in mind, and then keeping in mind in what you go get takeout. I have a pho place here where I live that they're accustomed to me bringing in my glass jug for them to put my pho in if I'm doing takeout, because unfortunately that plastic that they put stuff in the styrofoam, oh my goodness. But nevertheless, we already know about the styrofoam. A lot of us just don't think about the plastic. And it's more that we might even know about the plastic, but we don't have that light going off in our head day in, day out. And we're like eating completely clean, but then we're inundating ourselves still with hormones from the plastics. So today I'm going to kind of talk about what can you do to avoid plastics as much as possible. Because honestly, you can't 100% be plastic free. There's folks out there, there's even a website that I saw dedicated to it, and power to these folks to do that. But in a busy world, sometimes it doesn't happen. So there's some rules in which I live by and I educate my patients by. So number one, never heating or microwaving your food in plastic containers. Because this is like number one world of getting an inundation of a ton of chemicals. The generic term is xenoestrogens. They act like estrogens in your body, and they will build up and cause issues just like your regular estrogens can do. And so ladies, if you have horrible periods and issues with that, you got to stop the lean cuisine microwaving issue. You know who you are. Stop it. Go get some real food. Quit microwaving things. The other thing is if you have a favorite takeout place that you go to often and they're making your food for you, you might want to inquire about how much stuff is heated up in plastic in those restaurants too. Try to see, the more you know, the better things are going to be. And especially if you're trying to lose weight, you have thyroid issues, you have adrenal fatigue. These are big issues here because all of that stuff, infertility too, all that stuff has so much to do with weird chemicals getting in your body that you don't even know the impact. And so this is a big deal. Go get rid of all of your microwave food right now. Seriously, make your own food. And if you're going to microwave, that's fine. Just put it in glass. Okay. Glass jars. Save your spaghetti jars. I do. It's the way to go. Okay. So that's number one. Number two, BPA, bisphenol PA. This is a big deal. This is on the inside of all kinds of our canned foods. So of course now we have labels that'll say if things are BPA free, so make sure you're looking for those. But you're gonna get in touch with BPA if you use wax or parchment paper, aluminum foil. There are good parchment papers out there though. There is a company that you can get at Whole Foods. I am blanking on the name right now. It is something, it's kind of a funny name. I'll get it here before the end of the podcast. Now, aluminum also BPA. So keep that in mind. Also, aluminum cans, BPA. So those of you that have that Diet Coke habit, not only is the Diet Coke not a good idea, it's now the aluminum and the BPA. So the can and the lining on the can. So 3 reasons to not drink Diet Coke any longer. I know a lot of people are probably cringing right now. It's okay. You'll be fine without it. Your body will love you. All right. So jumping back into plastic water bottles, those disposable ones, Yeah, most of them have BPA. Unless you can see it on the label that it says BPA free, you are drinking chemicals. And then add that to that clear water bottle, little sunlight gets to it, warms up a little. Ooh, xenoestrogens now. So BPA and estrogens, two hormone disruptors that are going to mess with your fertility, mess with your periods if you're ladies, mess with all kinds of stuff. And weight gain, thyroid, the list goes on. All right, so you got that there. Now, the next thing is there's a lot of BPA in your cooking utensils, and this is where I got into the plastic spatulas, the plastic spoons, etc. Anything you can think of for using in the kitchen. If you're using the dollar store brand of things, get rid of it. There are really, really great high-quality silicone products out there. Tovolo, Tovolo, is a great brand. High-heat silicone is the way to go for your kitchen utensils. I used to always say stainless steel, but stainless steel can leach chemicals too, and can leach a little bit more aluminum and other chemicals that we don't really want happening, lead, things of that nature. So I'm very much into the high heat silicone at this point, because even with some of our wooden spoons, unless you've got them from someone who whittled it out of a tree on their own, you've got all kinds of possible plastics and chemicals with the gluing together of all the pieces. And bamboo's really popular, but if you're using little pieces of bamboo and you're gluing them all together, now you're going to get some of the glue in your food. Sorry to ruin it for you out there, folks, but high heat silicone for now, and eventually we'll probably find something else, but at this point, high heat silicone's the way to go, least toxic. I'm not saying it's not toxic, it's just the least toxic. All right. Finding food and water containers that are BPA free are absolutely key, especially those that contain phthalates. And the phthalates products are number 3 plastic. So the plastics that you want to avoid are number 3, 6, and 7, because those have the most chemicals that are going to be leached into your food or into your environment. Now, when possible, look to see if items say phthalate free, because now you're also looking at phthalates being added to different hygiene products and your laundry soaps and dish soaps and also your makeup removers, in addition to your cleansers and things of that nature. So phthalates, PHTHALATES, phthalates. That's how you spell that one. Keep that one in mind. Big deal there. All right. So we've talked about BPA, and the big thing with BPA too, and it came out a while ago, is receipts. So I'm always telling folks when I'm at a store and I'm buying something, like, I don't want the receipt. I don't want to touch it. For those of you who are grocery store checkers or you have a lot of contact with the receipts, wear gloves. I know it sounds cheesy, but BPA is in about 93 to 95% of Americans that were tested for this in the blood. That is a big deal. That was a test that was reported by the Environmental Working Group, EWG.org, if you're interested in looking more into that. I also have the link at the end of the podcast. But BPA is a problem because its big issue is messing with your thyroid in particular. And I can't tell you, I see at least 3 ladies a week newly diagnosed with thyroid issues. That's a big deal. It's also linked to breast cancer and reproductive issues, in particular infertility. So if you're struggling with fertility, just don't even get receipts. Your credit cards will track stuff anyway. Stop using cash. Just use your credit card. Yikes. This is not a money podcast, so there you have it. Now, plastics with label PC number 7. Avoid it like the plague. That's got BPA in it as well. All right. So now that's the skinny on the BPA. We've got some other plastics and things of that nature. I talked about the phthalates, so PHTHALATES. These guys trigger cell death. So imagine that you have like 50 billion cells dying a day. Sounds crazy, but yes, you have a lot of cell death going on, and then we have a lot of turning over and new cells created each day. So don't panic. But you already have 50 billion cells dying a day, and so if the phthalates are in there, they're going to trigger more cell death. That is a problem. And the reason being is because it can kill your thyroid. So killing your thyroid cells, it can kill kidney cells, it can cause obesity. And the reason it can cause obesity is because they're killing your cell's mitochondrial function. Your mitochondria are your factories, and every single one of your cells that creates energy. And if you're killing your cell's energy factories and you're killing your cells, well, guess what? You're going to start gaining weight because what else is going to happen? Your metabolism's slowing down. Phthalates are also connected to testicular disease, and in particular, phthalates do like to decrease testosterone and sperm production. So guys, if you're having trouble with fertility, this is a biggie. Get rid of the phthalates in your life. You find them in PVC plastic number 3, plastic wrap, ton of personal care products like I mentioned before, and anything that says fragrance. Fragrance is absolutely fake. If you want a fragrance, make sure it says organic essential oil and whatever it is for that matter. But fragrance is junk. Get rid of it. Ditch it from all of your products. Basically just ditch the products. All right. So moving right along. I was talking about those lovely nonstick cookware items. So they have something called PFCs, perfluorinated chemicals. According to the Environmental Working Group, 99% of Americans have this in our bodies. What the heck? Well, it's because in the 80s, we were sold on these nonstick cookware things. I mean, who doesn't love nonstick cookware? I mean, if I can't sleep late at night, I'm watching the guy who's selling me, on how he can put a whole bunch of cheese in a fry pan and slips right out. That's awesome. It speeds up cooking. It's amazing. But guess what? All of those chemicals end up in your food too. So, yummy. So that's not a good thing. The PFOAs, so the perfluorinated chemicals end up in your water-resistant clothing too. So if you have anything that's water-resistant, wear some clothes in between it. Probably not something that you can 100% avoid, especially if you work outside or you have sports that you participate in, things of that nature. But one of the things to keep in mind, if you're going to apply it, wear a mask. So if you're waterproofing something, wear a mask and wear gloves. That'll reduce your amount of exposure there. Now, granted, you're going to wear the water-resistant stuff anyway. What I recommend is, put clothing on in between what the water-resistant item is and what you're going to be wearing outside. Obviously, most people are going to do that anyway. That seems like a no-brainer. But just keep in mind that when you're applying the water-resistant materials to your clothing or your boots or whatever you might be doing, keep that in mind. Mask, gloves. We get lazy. It's just so critical to wear those masks because we might think, I have gloves on, I'm not going to touch the items. Yeah, but you're breathing in those chemicals too. Same thing goes for water-resistant coatings and stains, flooring stuff, carpet, furniture, all that. I highly recommend if you do buy something that has a stain-resistant, fancy, component to let's say a lazy boy chair, put the lazy boy out in your garage and let it air out, or on your back deck and let it air out for a day or two before you bring it into the home, because that's going to reduce your overall amount of chemicals. And oddly enough, in the winter, we get exposed to more of them, especially from our nonstick cookware. We're heating that cookware up. Those chemicals are going into the air. Well, in the winter, you don't have your windows open, you don't have your doors open. We get exposed to more chemicals, build them up, and then in the summer we have less exposure. And so keeping in mind that if you're going to buy, say, new carpet, or you're going to buy new furniture or a new bed or something of that nature, there's always going to be some level of chemicals. Maybe try to buy it in the summer when you have the windows open. Or, like I said, put it in your garage, put it on your back deck and let it air out a little bit. That'll be better because these perfluorinated chemicals are related to low sperm quality and especially thyroid dysfunction. And I'm telling you, I literally see 3 ladies or more a week with thyroid issues. It's crazy the amount of thyroid issues going on. And a lot of us are not tested properly to know that our fatigue and our hair loss and our skin issues and constipation are related to the thyroid. And a lot of docs will just test TSH and T4 and say, you're good. TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone and T4 is your hormone that comes out of your thyroid, but it's got to get converted to something called T3. That's for another podcast, but just so you know, you're in general screens by your average doc, you're not going to get a full in-depth look into your thyroid. And if you're feeling fatigued and you're constipated and you've got skin issues and your hair's falling out, you better go and get a full panel. And that is TSH, free T3, free T4, antibodies to the thyroid, so anti-TPOs, thyroglobulin antibody. Get all of those to know what is going on. All right, so those are the biggies in terms of plastics and whatnot. There are a ton of other hormone disruptors out there. Most of them have to do with things that are on our produce, and so dioxins, and that's why it's absolutely key to really, really be careful with going and getting organic when possible. And I say dioxins, those are in meat, fish, milk, eggs, butter, and that's why meatless days are good. Atrazine is an herbal pesticide, and that's why organic is better. But in particular with atrazine, just a side note here, it is very, very common to be found in and on corn and in water. And this is why corn is often a no-go on an anti-inflammatory food list, is because the high amounts of atrazine that are trapped in corn. And a lot of folks will say, well, what about non-GMO corn versus GMO corn? Same thing. The molecules of corn have already gotten into our bloodstream for the most part, and we do have a low-level immune system reaction to it. Most of us do, because of two things. Corn is highly genetically modified, so that's one irritant to the body, but then also we've got atrazine living in the corn, hanging out in the corn, and that inflames us. In particular, atrazine was found to turn a male frog into a female frog. Just a side note, that's pretty crazy. And if you ever watch how you feel, say you go out for a night at a pub and you go and get some nachos, and the next day, just see how you feel. Now, granted, you might have had a ton of beer too, but chances are if you go out, you have some nachos, you didn't drink a ton, you're going to feel a little crappy the next day or bloated. A lot of times it's that atrazine and the genetically modified corn and those tortilla chips. So what does that mean? Don't get tortilla chips. Get fries instead. No, I'm kidding. Corn's just a hard one, and my pure point there is just in terms of the atrazine and the chemicals. Now, those are side notes, and I digress because I've been talking more about plastics, and I really want you to keep in mind that plastics can be such a problem, and the types of cookware that you're using can be a big issue, and how you store your food is a big issue. So one of the big questions that I get all the time is, all right, well, if I can't use my nonstick cookware, and you're telling me that Le Creuset has some enamels that have lead in it, and they're not the healthiest, and the aluminum pans are not the best, and the stainless steel, all-clad, expensive ones aren't very good, because stainless steel is a combination of different metals that leach chemicals into your food. What the heck do you use? Well, as it stands right now, there's two companies out there, and essentially they're actually the same company, and I'll explain that in a minute, that I really like. And they're good quality because of how they manufacture their ceramic, so it's ceramic cookware. And the manufacturer is called Ceramcor, Ceramcor. And you can go to their website, ceramcor.com. It's Extrema Cookware. And what it is it's glazed ceramic pans, and the glaze that's put on them is non-toxic. And the company actually shows what is in and what's been tested in terms of that glaze. And it shows you what comes up in terms of chemicals. And it's very low level for all of the toxic items that come out of that cookware when you're heating it up. I don't believe that there is any cookware on the market at this point that is completely free from some type of toxic item. Now, a lot of folks will be interested to hear about the Lodge cast iron pans. Cast iron pans are great. It's just that iron sometimes can be overloading for folks, because too much of a good thing, as we know, never ends well. Now, I don't recommend that folks use cast iron pans all the time, but I do recommend that you do have one in your arsenal, because they are useful, and a little iron, maybe 3 times, using it 3 times a week, not a problem. But what I would be doing in between is using a safe glazed ceramic pan. And in particular, there's the Extrema brand that you can get straight through Ceramcor, so Ceramcor.com, or you can go through Dr. Mercola on his website. His cookware is actually made by Extrema. And so there you have it. It's the same product, just his name is privately labeled on the cookware. But the cookware is the best out there at this point in terms of the least toxic load on you when it heats up. So I've got links to Extrema cookware below. I have links to Dr. Mercola's products as well. I also have some links to Wellness Mama's review of the glazed ceramic pans and Irina Webb's review as well. Because what I don't want a lot of folks out there to be thinking is, oh my gosh, I have all clad stainless steel. I spent, $4,000 on the whole set. What do I do? Well, it's not that it's the end of the world. Just rotate your pans. Get used, one day you're using your all clad, the other day you've got your Lodge cast iron pan, and then you've got some good enameled cookware in there, like the Extrema cookware. You can also, Le Creuset isn't horrible. It's just the different glazes, and there is some lead in the red colored ones that are enameled in the red. Now I've been told that Dune and there's another color and I can't think of it now. So the more mild colors do not have any toxins in their glaze. So something to keep in mind when you're looking at products. Now there are the company Staub out there, STAUB as well. They are a decent company. I just don't know the extent of how much is leaching from their glazes, and that's just something to keep in mind in terms of those items. Now, there are a lot of companies out there, and obviously the common ones that you would buy at Target and whatnot, they're just not that great. You do need to spend some money on some good products, and nevertheless, the Extrema cookware at this point is one of the best options. Now, in terms of the silicone spatulas and things of that nature, Tovolo, Tovolo, makes a great line of items, and there are other companies. You want to look for ones that are high heat silicone products. Now, there are some folks out there that have reviewed the silicone baking items. So the baking ware that is silicone and it's high heat. And some folks have said that's great stuff too. I just haven't seen the data sheets on what leaches from them. And that's where I make my decision, is when I can see what's really been coming out of these products when they're heated up. Because that's the problem. When they're just sitting there and they're not heated up, no big deal, nothing's coming out. But with any type of plastic, with any type of glaze and enamel, when it's heated up, that's when you get problems. That's why frying pans, if they're just sitting there cold, no problem. When they get heated up, this is the issue. So keep that in mind. So what are you going to do with your bodies and how to get rid of this extra junk? I have folks at least 3 times a year do a detox of their liver using a product called DIM Detox, D-I-M-D, so detox, by Pure Encapsulations. It's a great product, and it really cleanses your liver out and just gets the junk out. And I have folks do 1 bottle, and usually I'll have folks start and do a cleanse somewhere between March and April, then do another one pretty much at the end of the summer, and one right after Christmas time, just right around New Year's or so. Wait till January 2nd and then start your next protocol. But DIM Detox by Pure Encapsulations is one of my faves. The other thing is something called Moducare by a company Thorne. Moducare is plant sterols. It is a great product with a ton of antioxidants to help to rejuvenate your mitochondria. So those little factories I was talking about in your cells that slowly die when we're exposed to a bunch of chemicals. Moducare, way to go in that department. All right. So I've run you through all of the different chemicals and different issues that could go on with consuming too many foods that were either heated or preserved in plastic. And I don't mean to scare you. It's just another way to consciously think about keeping your toxin load down. Because if you're going to be eating clean, you might as well make it count. And if you want to make it count, you want to make sure that you're reducing the load of plastics and other toxic items in your cookware, because this is huge, because these things are going to be directly connected to what goes in your mouth and what goes into your body. And a lot of us are very concerned about our home care products and our soaps and things of that nature being chemical free and hormone disruptor free, but a lot of times we forget about our cookware and we forget about what we're cooking with, our spatulas and our spoons. And so keep that in mind. Absolutely key here to keep you nice and healthy. So check out my show notes. I've got the resources in terms of the Extrema cookware, the bees wrap, also the do-it-yourself reusable wrap from Mommy Potamus, and I also have links to Magicare and Dim Detox if you're interested in those. So I hope that you've learned a little bit from this podcast, and I would love to hear what you're thinking about. And if you have any other products that you love that are non-toxic, I'm all ears. All right, once again, another episode of The Health Fix. I'm Dr. Janine Krause. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in to The Health Fix, the podcast all about taking control of your health, rebelling against aging, and having fun every day. A lot of patients ask me, do you think I'm aging too fast? So, I created an evaluation checklist for you to see for yourself. Plus, I created a resource guide to help you slow down the aging process right now. You can find it for free on my website, drjkrausend.com. If you like this podcast, help get the word out to others by liking it and rating it. If you'd like more natural health tips and want to join our Facebook community where I interact daily, click on the Join Group button on our website at drjkrausend.com.